What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. How are y'all doing? Hope you're doing well. Grab your coffee, kick back, relax. We're going to talk about another dungeon today. We did NELTHARUS, which is kind of the fiery forge kind of dungeon for this expansion. So it looks really good. We've done a bunch of them now. We've done Ruby Life Pools, the Not Good Offensive. We did Old Demand. We've done Halls of Invasion and Brackenhide now. So we're on to NELTHARUS. And I've tried to get into the Algthar Academy. It's super bugged right now. And I haven't gone into the Azure Vaults yet. So we'll do those ones obviously soon. But this is NELTHARUS. It's got 4 bosses. And I'm going to jump right into it here. I do have I'm on my rogue for the actual dungeon itself. Was trying out some rogue builds, which were working out really well. And just remember, guys, that this is all beta. And I just want to make sure that I keep stressing this in all the different videos, that this is just beta. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And it's important to remember that, because sometimes we think, like, the damage matters, you know, and that everything is working as intended. And therefore, like, the numbers that we see here are the numbers that are going to be, you know, in the final product. And that is just not true. So just keep that in mind. For example, over the course of this dungeon, you will see that the Demon Hunter does roughly double the damage of everybody else. And it's a little bit insane. It's just because it's bugged right now. All of his abilities are, like, bugged. They're doing way too much damage. They're proccing, like, twice as often as they should be. Stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. But NELTHARUS is a very cool-looking dungeon. Once again, the art team has absolutely nailed it out of the park here. Knocked it out of the park? Nailed it. Knocked it out of the park here. And it's really, really fun. There's some really cool environmental effects in this dungeon, like the floor that you walk on. If it's got, like, a vent, like grating or whatever, and there's fire underneath, you will literally catch on fire. So you have to be really careful about what you're doing there. So here's a big AOE pack here. You can see I'm doing a really solid 52k, and the Demon Hunter's doing 130k. So, so, you know, there's things like that are happening. And let me move my notes over here. And that will, you know, sort of ruin the experience, right? Because I'm doing probably a normal amount of damage, and he's sort of doing an ungodly amount of damage. So another really cool thing about this dungeon, you just saw me click on my map there. Let me pause here. You can pick whichever way you want to go at the beginning here. So you can actually choose which boss you want to go to first, and you're going to have to make your way over to the second boss anyway. So we choose to come over here and get this Magmatusk guy. But one thing that Blizzard is making doing consistently in all the dungeons, is providing players the agency to be able to do kind of whatever you want to do. So you can run to whichever side of the dungeon that you want to run to first, and this dungeon is no exception. You know, Brackenhide Hollow was the same. You got to pick and choose whichever boss you wanted to go to there first. I'm trying to think of some of the other dungeons that were. I mean, look really quick here. The Not Good Offensive, you got to choose, like, which packs you wanted to kill. Or, sorry, that's in Brackenhide Hall. You get to choose which packs you want to kill. Then you also get to choose which bosses you want to kill. The Not Good Offensive, you can fly to whichever boss you want to fly to. That's the dragon riding dungeon, so you can fly to wherever you want to go to. Old Demand is maybe the only one so far that is very, like, linear. So, but anyway. Give me 1 second. I got to get my notes up. This is Magmatusk. I have my notes over here. There we go. Okay. So this is the first boss we decided to go to. You're going to see that he's got these tusks over here, which is pretty cool. These little, like, magma tusks. Everything that this boss does will sort of add a magma tusk to him. And again, you can see it here floating around his character there. So what you need to be careful of, basically, is that when he gets to 100 energy, he's going to stomp. You can see his energy is slowly building up. He's at 100 now. He's doing his big stomp, volatile mutation. So he stomps and does damage, and he'll add a tusk to himself. Then every time when he does this beam, that beam that's going out right there, it does a lot of damage to whichever player is standing in front of it, and you want to make sure that you're not in front of that player. Also, he does Blazing Charge, and he puts a puddle on the ground after he does that. So this boss room will essentially fill up with lava, and then the spray, you want to make sure nobody else gets hit with that spray. So you can see the Demon Hunter was kind of running around like a madman there. You don't want to run around with that. If you're doing this on Mythic, I'm always going to give you a little caveat here. This is on normal. This is on Heroic, of course. If you do this on Mythic, then The boss, if he stands in one of those magma puddles that he puts on the ground, he does 50% more damage. So you can't have that happen. So very important to understand where the boss is positioned when you're on Mythic. So that whole room is going to fill up with magma. You have to be very careful about that. So remember, you just saw there, I got set on fire for a second there. It didn't do a lot of damage, but on Mythic difficulty, especially at the higher Mythic Plus that you start traveling, those ground effects are going to nuke your character. So you have to be very, very careful while walking around in this dungeon so you don't catch on fire. So once again, more AoE damage here. We're going to move towards the second boss here, which is going to be Chargath. It's a really great name. So he's in this room. Always remember when you're approaching the trash for the boss that they're going to show you some of what the boss does. So here's Chargath, Bane of Scales. He's going to strike the tank with, actually it's just a random character with Dragon Strike. Right there. He does Grounding Spear. This is the main mechanic on this fight. So he's going to throw a spear at somebody, and you need to basically try to hit the boss with that spear. So you can see the Demon Hunter has the chain on him now. He's attached to this chain, to the spear. What you want to do is run the chain through the boss. But you don't want to run it through any players. If you run it through another player, one of your allies, you will knock them down and do damage to them. So you can see the Demon Hunter is working his way towards the boss. Once he hits the boss, it interrupts the boss with that chain, and it stuns him for like 5 seconds. Very important. That's the main mechanic on this fight, is when the chain is attached to somebody, you need to run that chain through the boss. So I get the chain on me right now. So I have it. Now I need to run over top of the boss. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. So you can see I have the big chain right here. Then I have to run. I thought I had to run the chain away, but you don't. You have to run it through the boss. Now, he's doing an ability right now called Blade Lock. This is his big signature ability. He channels this for 25 seconds, and he starts doing crazy amounts of damage. You need to run a chain through him while he's channeling Blade Lock, just like this. And it will stun him, and it will stop him from casting Blade Lock. If you do not run him through, that's the only way to interrupt him on his Blade Lock ability. So on high Tyrannical and stuff, you're going to have to manage the chains that you have going out. If you don't have a chain ready to go for when he starts casting Blade Lock, you're going to be in trouble. So what can happen, I think, on that fight is he will throw a spear at somebody, they'll get a chain, and you'll immediately burst the chain before he starts channeling Blade Lock. And if you do that, then you'll have no way of interrupting him while he's channeling Blade Lock. That would be a big mistake. So my guess is right before he starts to channel like Blade Lock, you're going to want to hold off on breaking the chain. Don't break the chain right away. Make sure that you just hold on to it. Just tank the damage for the portion of that's going. And then once he starts channeling Blade Lock, then you can, of course, run the chain through him, and you will stun him. So that's, I think, how you want to be playing that fight. Here's another kind of big AoE pack here. This is decent damage from us. Once again, you're going to see, though, the Demon Hunter damage gets really outrageous. He's doing 100k right now, 130k. I'm doing 50k, which is great. 55, 57. I thought we almost get up to 60k there. Like that's great damage, guys. If you're doing 50 or 60k AoE, that's perfectly fine. But he's just a little bit bugged right now, unfortunately. So we're making our way to the next boss. Is a mini boss right here. The commander. He starts throwing lava all over the floor. This is part of the next boss fight. This is a mechanic on the next boss fight that you're going to see. So remember that. We're doing another 60, 70k AoE for me right here. Really, really strong. Outlaw Rogue's looking really good, by the way. If you're curious about what build I was running, we are running the right side of the tree. So we're doing a pistol shot build. That's basically what I was doing. It was all the pistol shot stuff with green skin whiskers at the bottom. So then we have to clear some trash around this boss. This is Forgemaster Gorek. This is the next boss that's coming here. Right here. So he's got this big anvil in the middle. And you'll see that he basically occasionally will slam the anvil. He's doing it right now. Might of the Forge. It does a big burst of fire damage to the whole group. Obviously, on higher Tyrannical, it's going to matter a lot more than it does right now. But he slams that. That's just a healing mechanic. You just have to heal through that. So he will slam that, and then occasionally he's going to throw blazing Aegis, and he just threw it right there. He's going to throw it at one character. It's going to hit them and do damage, and then it's going to throw out these lines, these fiery lines on the floor here. You can see them right there. So that's his. It's kind of like a prop paladin. He throws out his shield and it bounces around. But on heroic, it only bounces to one target. On mythic, that shield will bounce to 3 allies. And then each one of your allies will have those fiery lines coming out from them. So that'll be much, much more dangerous on mythic. You'll have to dodge those really, really heavily. And then he sort of ignites the fire, and it starts spewing fire across the battlefield. And then he's going to slam the forge once again, doing AOE damage. The only other mechanic, here's this blazing Aegis. It's only hitting one target right now. It'll hit 3 targets on mythic. The only other mechanic he does is a tank mechanic where he kind of hits the tank right here. Heated swings. It knocks back the tank, okay? And then he dives on top of the tank. So he's going to knock you backwards, and then he does a big dive on top of you. If you get hit by that dive, it does a ridiculous amount of damage. And on mythic, it will leave a puddle of lava on the ground as well. So kind of be careful about that. That's the main thing with the Forgemaster. He slams the anvil, doing lots of damage, and then the main mechanic to watch out for is when he throws that shield, it's going to bounce on mythic to 3 of your party members. You need to be separated so you don't take damage, and then you need to watch where those fire lines start going, because they will one-shot you on like higher tyrannicals. So again, you got to be very careful. Here's some more fire on the ground. Again, you want to walk through the middle here. Don't walk on top of the fire grates, or you will get burned. Then we need to jump down to the middle platform. Once again, there's fire grates, and you're approaching this final boss room, which is covered in gold. And I think some of you guys have probably already seen this final boss. This final boss is kind of disappointing compared to the other bosses. It doesn't really have like a real mechanic, besides obviously the gold piles, which you'll see in a minute. I didn't really understand the danger of this boss. It seemed like it was undertuned compared to the other bosses, and the other bosses had very noticeable themes. You know, the Magmatusk, the big like the huge creature at the beginning. I don't know, he's a tusk, he's some sort of tusk creature. He obviously he just gets harder as the fight goes on. So like the longer the fight goes, the harder that boss fight gets, period, because he's going to keep growing more Magmatusks, and then he's going to do more damage with all of his abilities. So he kind of just has like a hard enrage as the fight goes on, Magmatusk. Chargath, of course, has the chain mechanic. You have to run the chain through the boss, which is very cool. Forgemaster has the anvil stuff going on. You have to watch out for when he throws that Aegis shield. This guy just has, like, it just doesn't feel that special to me, like, his mechanic. And it is interesting. Like, there's a frontal right here you have to watch out for. When you have to go pick up the gold piles, it is kind of interesting. But, like, I don't know. Molten gold, he just throws at a random ally. Like, there's nothing like truly kind of interesting going on here mechanically for players. Burning Ember is just a damage he does, and it spawns an ad that you have to kill. Now this does fixate a target, so it's fixating me right now. And now he's going to do his big mechanic here where he puts a shield on himself, magma shield, and you have to go find piles of stuff on the ground, and I didn't realize where they were at first, but they're over here. So you have to pick these up, and you get a magic item, and then you have to hit the boss with that magic item, and it will break his shield. There's no other way to break the shield. So, like, that's kind of fine, but I don't know. It feels like this fight is fairly uninteractive. Like, there's not really a whole lot for the players to do mechanically to make this fight better. Like, on the other fights, you have to play them a particular way, and it'll make the fight better for you. This one's just kind of like, go find the magic items. That would be kind of fun on, So, I don't know. I'm kind of a little disappointed by the last boss fight. I'm not going to lie. A little bit disappointed there. So,
yeah, so
our overall damage was cool. We ended up doing about 22.5k. We could have done more. I actually didn't have my poison on for this boss, for this dungeon. I forgot to put my instant poison on, which would have been another like 1 million damage. So there you go. That's the way it goes. But let me just jump back to the gameplay here really quickly. So this dungeon, sorry, is very, very cool. I like NELTHARUS. I love the art, of course. They've nailed it again. They've knocked it out of the park. It's really good. I like that there are environmental problems you have to worry about, like not walking on the heated vents, or you take a ton of damage. On Mythic Plus especially, you're going to take a ton of damage. The boss fights are very, very good. As I was talking about for this Magmatusk guy, it's all about these extra tusks that he grows, and you have to be very, very careful about that. So his tentacles that he grows, it makes him do more damage. And once again, on Mythic, like I said, Blazing Charge will leave a trail of liquid hot magma, and if he stands anytime he's standing in a lava of any kind, he gets 50% more damage right here from lava empowerment. So very, very interesting. You have to be careful about your positioning on that boss fight. Of course, on Chargath, it's all about the chain. On Mythic difficulty, the chain is applied to all players, so that will be really interesting. So you can't crisscross each other with the chains. You have to be very careful about your positioning, and you're going to want to run over the boss with the chain so that you keep stunning him. And also on Mythic difficulty, if you hit the boss, excuse me, here it is. In Mythic difficulty, 3 stacks of Fetter will stun Chargath and increases damage taken by 75%. So we were stunning Chargath with just 1 chain on normal difficulty. On Mythic difficulty, you have to hit him with 3 chains, and that will inflict him with this debuff called Fetter, which will, and if you get 3 stacks of Fetter, then he gets stunned and takes more damage. So, again, very cool mechanics on that boss fight. Forgemaster Gorek, like, once again, the Blazing Aegis that I talked about will bounce to 3 allies in total, not just 1, and then it will send out those blazing eruptions across the ground that do tons of damage, 80,000 fire damage if you get hit by those fire lines. So that will do a lot of your health. You have to be very, very careful about that. And then the final boss, again, on Mythic, there is this thing called the Dragon's Eruption. So I don't really know what that means yet. We weren't able to see it on normal. We're going to have to see kind of what that does. But my understanding of the final boss is that he's just not really that tough. Like, I don't know. It was a little bit boring, not going to lie. His shield, I think, is much, much bigger on Mythic. It looks like he gets a different shield there. So instead of 300k... Instead of on normal 300k for his shield, on Mythic he gets 800k for his shield. Plus, it looks like the Embers get his shield as well, which is interesting. And they're fixating on people. So that, like, I guess that will complicate the final boss fight. That there will be Embers that are pursuing people, and they are fixated, and you have to basically... It looks like you're going to have to obviously do a lot of damage to them, or maybe you can hit them with a magic item that's on the ground. That probably makes more sense. So it looks like the final boss fight will get a little bit more interesting, but still doesn't seem like it's as interesting as the other boss fights, in my opinion. But that is NELTHARUS, guys. That is the entire dungeon in a nutshell. It's really fun. I love the art. I love the environmental stuff. The boss fights are actually quite interesting. And yeah, I think that the pathing that players get to choose, you get more player agency. We are seeing in every one of these dungeons, guys, that Blizzard is really doubling down on players being able to choose which way they want to go. In NELTHARUS, you can choose which boss you want to go to first. In the Knockout Offensive, you can fly to whichever dungeon you want to fly to first. Brackenhide Hollow, you can choose which Tuskar to release from their cages. You can choose which packs you're deciding to kill. And you're able to, you know, basically just pick your route at the beginning of the dungeon, which is really, really cool. Uldaman is a little bit more linear, and Halls of Infusion, I can't remember. Halls of Infusion is also a little bit more linear, but there's probably at least half the dungeons that have been released so far give you the option to choose which bosses you want to get to first and how you want to approach your, you know, using things like Bloodlust and all that kind of stuff. So, very good. Love it. Love NELTHARUS. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What do you think about the dungeons so far in Dragonflight? So far, what have you seen? Do you like the art? Do you like the way they're designed? Do you think the boss fights are interesting? Any and all comments, let me know down below. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.